We're live from New Delhi. You're watching DD India News, India's voice to the world. I'm Lipakshi Khurana, coming up in the next hour. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi reaches Kyiv on a historic visit to Ukraine. First ever visit by an Indian Prime Minister to Ukraine after establishing diplomatic ties in 1992. US Vice President Kamala Harris formally accepts Democratic presidential nomination, attacks Donald Trump, calling him unserious and a threat, vows a new way forward for all Americans.
I accept your nomination to be President of the United States of America.
America's space agency NASA to decide stranded Starliner astronaut Sunita Williams and Barry Wilmore's return path home on Saturday. India celebrates its first National Space Day, honouring the success of Chandrayaan-3 mission. President Draupadi Murmu lauds India's journey to space. And India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi has arrived in Kyiv on a historic visit to Ukraine. Well, PM Modi is visiting Ukraine at the invitation of President Volodymyr Zelensky. It is the first ever visit by an Indian Prime Minister to Ukraine after establishing diplomatic ties in 1992. During his visit, the Indian Prime Minister will be holding talks with Ukraine President on strengthening bilateral cooperation and share perspectives on peaceful resolution of the ongoing Ukraine conflict. In his pre-departure statement, Prime Minister showed confidence that the visit will serve as a natural continuation of extensive contacts with the two countries and help create the foundation for stronger and more vibrant relations in the years ahead. An Indian Prime Minister had a one-to-one meeting with a select group of Polish influencers before wrapping up his Poland visit. This includes people from the world of education, business and sports. DD India correspondent Vishal Baristo caught up with some of them, including the captain of men's and women's kabaddi team of Poland. Take a look.
The two-day visit of Prime Minister Narendra Modi has ended in Poland on a very, very positive note, and he also met a section of the Polish personalities, which includes two kabaddi players and also a businesswoman. So let's talk to them and find out. Kabaddi is India's national game. I have with me Michael. Michael is the captain of the Polish kabaddi team. Michael, how was the experience interacting with the Prime Minister?
Yeah, I love it. His energy is awesome, and he's a sport person. He was responsible for building many stadiums, and he do yoga. I think he played cricket a little bit, so I think it was an amazing opportunity to talk with him, and we have more bigger and bigger motivation to promote the sport in Poland and in Europe, of course.
Anna, first of all, kabaddi, Poland, Prime Minister. I mean, quite a different combination.
We feel our situation here in Poland, promoting the ancient sport, Indian actually sport, which is kabaddi. So I think the meeting went really smoothly and we got the bond, I guess. So really we could feel that he's supporting us in all layers.
From kabaddi, we move on to a different mat, and that is business. So Alina, what was your reaction when you met the Prime Minister, and what kind of business? Was it business or as usual?
Yeah, definitely. It was a pleasure, and I was delighted to meet Mr. Narendra Modi here in Warsaw, because we are our presence, TZMO presence in India, it's more than 2 decades right now. Looking at India as a country which is developing so fast, we see a lot of opportunities for business and for women.
Happy and healthy life, for that you need to have a fit body. Fit body comes from sports. and they both represent that, and she takes care of your finances. With cameraman Ankur in Poland, this is Vishal Baristo, DD India, Warsaw.
And updates on Russia-Ukraine conflict now. Ukraine has said that it used a US-made GBU-39 bomb to strike a Russian platoon command post in the Kursk region of Russia. Ukraine's Air Force released a footage on Thursday. Kyiv's allies, including the United States, are supplying weapons to Ukrainian forces, but have imposed restrictions on how and when they can be used inside Russia. Out of concern, such strikes could prompt retaliation from Russia that draws NATO countries into the Ukraine-Russian war. And the International Atomic Energy Agency Director General Rafael Grossi will visit Kursk nuclear power plant next week to assess the situation. IAEA was informed by the Russian Federation that the remains of a drone had been found within the Kursk nuclear power plant. Russian President Vladimir Putin on Thursday accused Ukraine of trying to strike the Kursk nuclear power plant in an overnight attack. Acting Kursk Governor Alexei Smirnov told Putin the situation at the Kursk plant was stable. DD India's Disha Shanishova reports for more from Moscow.
Russian President Vladimir Putin said Ukrainian forces tried to attack the Kursk nuclear power plant on Thursday. He said that Moscow had informed the International Atomic Energy Agency IAEA about the incident. He said that he expected watchdog specialists to come and assess the situation. Acting Kursk Governor Alexei Smirnov told Putin that the plant remains stable. IAEA head Rafael Grossi is expected to visit the plant next week. He earlier called for maximum restraint to avoid a nuclear accident at the Kursk nuclear power plant. Speaking at a meeting of senior officials about the situation in Russia and border regions, Smirnov told Putin that over 133,000 people had left the border regions. Bryansk region governor Alexander Bogomaz said that the border forces had repelled a Ukrainian attempt to cross into Russia. And in the Belgrade region, the governor said that over 30 settlements had been closed and residents relocated. On Thursday evening, Ukraine hit a ferry with fuel tanks in the port of Kavkaz in southern Krasnodar region of Russia. The ferry, loaded with 30 fuel tanks, sank. Dasha Chernashova in Moscow, reporting for DD India.
And updates now from Israel-Hamas conflict. Hostage and ceasefire talks are expected to pick up again over the coming days in Cairo as mediators look for a way to bridge gaps between Israel and Hamas after more than 10 months of fighting in Gaza. It comes as hostilities between Israel and Hezbollah are escalating amid fear of a wider regional spillover. DD India's Sarah Coates has more from Tel Aviv.
Well, the pressure on both Israel and Hamas to come to an agreement, come to a ceasefire deal just continues to mount. Although, while there is a lot of hope for this happening, there certainly is not a lot of optimism here on the ground. Now, late on Wednesday, US President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris, they had a phone call with Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister, really pressing him on the urgency for a truce in Gaza. Now, shortly after this, his office put out a statement. It says that Israel will insist on the achievement of all its objectives of the war as they've been defined by the Security Cabinet, including that Gaza will never again constitute a security threat to Israel. Now, really, the major sticking point this time around is the control over the Philadelphia corridor. This is this very narrow strip of land that separates Egypt and Gaza. And it is a demand of Israel and the Prime Minister that there will be no withdrawal of Israeli forces from this strategic area, with Netanyahu saying that this would be a security threat given that weapon smuggling could happen from Egypt into Gaza. Now, Hamas has also demanded that Israeli forces must withdraw from that area. So certainly a lot of work to do for these key mediators over the weekend as they really try and get across the line and get this truce into play, with this truce really being seen as vital to bring down tensions in other parts of the region, including between Israel and Hezbollah, with cross-border strikes only intensifying. And we also do need to remember that this threat of retaliation from both Hezbollah and also Iran continues to loom over Israel after the assassination of two very senior figures, one of these being Fuad Shakur. He was the second in charge of Hezbollah. He was assassinated in Beirut a number of weeks ago, and just the day after that assassination was another, and this was of Ismail Haniyeh. He was the leader of Hamas's Politburo. So certainly a lot of tension in the region, and once again a lot of pressure on both of these warring parties to finally get this truce done after 10 months of fighting in not only Gaza but also heavy conflict in Israel's north. Reporting from Tel Aviv, I'm Sarah Coates for DD India.
Well, after a 6-month closure, the first aid trucks prepared by the United Nations World Food Programme crossed Adre border to deliver much-needed aid for war-ravaged West Darfur. The United Nations agency on Wednesday said that more than a dozen trucks delivered food assistance for about 13,000 people threatened with famine in Western Darfur's Kerink region. The agency added that it had food ready to move for 500,000 people. Global monitors say that more than 6 million people face food insecurity across Darfur, which is mostly controlled by the Rapid Support Forces. The army-aligned government blocked aid deliveries in February through the Adre crossing into territory controlled by the RSF, alleging that it was being used for weapon deliveries. And the humanitarian crisis in Sudan has exacerbated cholera infections, with the war-stricken country recording almost 600 cases since July. World Health Organization representative to Sudan, Dr. Shibleh Sahabani, said on Thursday that 658 cases have been recorded in the past month alone. Contagious diseases, including cholera and conjunctivitis, are spreading rapidly in Sudan due to the prolonged conflict that has severely impacted the country's health sector, compounded by annual heavy rains and floods.
We have 5 states which are impacted, namely Khartoum, Jazeera, Gadaref, Kassala, and River Nile. But of course, the burden in these different states is different. Like in Kassala, we have 473 cases. In Gadaref, we have 110. In Jazeera, 51. In River Nile, 13. And Khartoum, 11 cases. Of course, WHO has prepositioned a lot of supplies in preparation of the rainy season because we were expecting that some outbreaks, disease outbreaks may emerge.
Well, whereas Sudanese Health Minister Haitham Mohamed Ibrahim said that the country has recorded 593 cases and 28 deaths since announcing the epidemic in July 23rd.
This year and until today's morning, we have almost 593 cases and 28 deaths. We are receiving reports around the clock with a very effective monitoring process throughout all the Sudanese states. The cases are increasing, especially in Kassala state, followed by Al-Qadrif state, as well as some suspect cases in River Nile state. There were suspected cases that appeared in Khartoum province a week ago, but we have not recorded any cases within the past 5 days of the week.
And still to come on DD India News Hour. Young voters in the United States demand climate change ahead of presidential elections in November. Hotel fire in South Korea claimed 7 lives, 12 others injured in the incident. Welcome back. You're watching TD India News. I'm Lipakshi Khuranan. Moving on, the 2024 Democratic National Convention got over with Kamala Harris formally accepting Democratic Party nomination for 2024 presidency. The highlight of the fourth and final day was only Kamala Harris. She made a case to the country that she is the right person to be the next president of the United States. It was Harris's the most important speech of her life. Kamala Harris' path from prosecutor to politician has been defined by many first. She was America's first Indian-American senator and California's first female and South Asian Attorney General. Harris is also the first woman to become vice president, as well as the first black or Asian American person to hold the office.
And so, on behalf of the people, on behalf of every American, regardless of party, race, gender, or the language your grandmother speaks, on behalf of my mother and everyone who has ever set out on their own unlikely journey, on behalf of Americans like the people I grew up with, people who work hard, chase their dreams, and look out for one another. On behalf of everyone whose story could only be written in the greatest nation on earth, I accept your nomination to be President of the United States of America.
Harris called her opponent Donald Trump as an unserious man. She talked of the chaos and calamity of his time in the White House. Harris launched a scathing attack on Trump for appointing a conservative justice to the Supreme Court, which later overturned Roe v. Wade, which had protected the federal right to abortion for decades.
In many ways, Donald Trump is an unserious man. But the consequences of putting Donald Trump back in the White House are extremely serious. Consider not only the chaos and calamity when he was in office, but also the gravity of what has happened since he lost the last election. Donald Trump tried to throw away your votes. When he failed, he sent an armed mob to the United States Capitol, where they assaulted law enforcement officers. And now, for an entirely different set of crimes, he was found guilty of fraud by a jury of everyday Americans and separately found liable for committing sexual abuse.
On Russia-Ukraine conflict, Harris said she will continue to stand strong with Ukraine and our NATO allies, while on Israel-Gaza conflict, Harris said she will always defend key U.S. ally Israel and called for an end to the conflict. Kamala Harris issued a direct appeal to Republicans questioning whether to vote for her, vowing to be a president for all Americans. Harris called voters to be guided by optimism as the election approaches.
Our nation with this election has a precious, fleeting opportunity to move past the bitterness, cynicism, and divisive battles of the past, a chance to chart a new way forward. Not as members of any one party or faction, but as Americans. And let me say, I know there are people of various political views watching tonight, and I want you to know, I promise to be a president for all Americans. You can always trust me to put country above party and self, to hold sacred America's fundamental principles, from the rule of law to free and fair elections, to the peaceful transfer of power.
Harris emerged as the Democratic candidate a little more than a month ago when allies of President Joe Biden, 81, forced him to quit the race. If successful, she stands to make history as the first woman elected U.S. president. And former U.S. President Donald Trump, on the other hand, the Republican presidential nominee, posted live reactions to Vice President Harris's Democratic nomination acceptance speech on his Truth Social platform. Trump also posted a tweet on social media platform X. Trump said Harris stands for incompetence and weakness, adding that U.S. is being laughed at all over the world. Trump labeled Harris as radical Marxist. On the border issue, he said she could not close the border. He further quipped she has 4.5 months left in the office, predicting his win in the November elections. Well, the election war game in America and its on. Republican presidential nominee and former U.S. President Donald Trump visited U.S.-Mexico border in Arizona on Thursday, and as expected, he criticized Kamala Harris as a lazy border czar. Trump showered praise on the wall that was built during his administration but was never completely finished. An Arizona man is wanted after threatening over social media to kill Trump, the Cochise County, as he visits the U.S. border with Mexico as part of his campaign. This is the latest in a series of threats against candidates ahead of the November 5th general election. Despite this and new threats, Trump said he has great respect for the Secret Service and the job they do, while adding they made mistakes from which they will learn.
And we have a Marxist that's running, and I don't think you can let her. This country is not ready for a Marxist president. She will never build the wall. She doesn't want to build the wall. She's only saying if she changes her mind, it's only because she wants to get elected, because who wouldn't want to have a strong border? You need strong borders and strong elections, and we have neither. But we're going to have very strong borders, and we're going to have very strong elections soon. We had a border czar who was the border czar. She loved the title, but she didn't want to do the work because she's lazy, and probably more importantly than being lazy, she wants to have an open border.
Well, young U.S. voters are demanding more action on climate change ahead of presidential elections in November. So far, the Democrats have welcomed the record of nominee Kamala Harris and a vice presidential pick, Tim Walz. DD India's Nick Harper from Washington has more on this.
Kamala Harris has a history of prioritising climate change. It was one of her top concerns during her time as California's Attorney General, where she made it her mission to prosecute polluters. As a senator, she helped to sponsor the Green New Deal. Then during her time as Vice President, she cast the tie-breaking vote for the Inflation Reduction Act, which is seen as perhaps the largest ever US climate investment. Similarly, her VP pick, Tim Walz, has a history of climate change action. As governor of Minnesota, he's focused on threats to his state, part of that being due to an extreme drought that Minnesota cattle farmers have faced in recent years, along with choking wildfire smoke that's been blown in from Canada. In 2023, Walz signed a new law for Minnesota to only get green energy from sources like wind and solar by the year 2040. Other legislation signed by the governor has prioritised electric vehicles and greater access to EV charging stations. Young Democrats in particular want the Harris-Walz campaign to put climate change at the top of its to-do list if they're elected in November. There is, of course, no guarantee they'll continue to champion climate change action from the Oval Office, but prioritising it in the Democratic platform may help to win over young, progressive, climate-conscious voters in a few months' time. In Washington, Nick Harper, reporting for DD India.
And moving on, Venezuela's Supreme Justice Tribunal on Thursday ratified President Nicolas Maduro's victory in the July 28th presidential election, sealing institutional backing for the ruling party. The Supreme Tribunal has reviewed material from the Electoral Authority and agrees that Maduro won the election. The The ratification gives Maduro, who took office in 2013, another 6-year term set to begin in January. The top court president, Caracelia Rodriguez, in her statement said the decision cannot be appealed.
The chamber unobjectionably certifies the electoral material manufactured and validates the results of the presidential election of July 28, 2024, issued by the National Electoral Council when Nicolas Maduro Moros was elected as president of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela for the constitutional period 2025-2031. It is so decided. The National Electoral Council is hereby urged to publish the final results of the electoral process held on July 28, 2024 for the election of the President of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela in the Electoral Gazette of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela.
En la Gaceta Electoral. And amid escalating tensions in South China Sea, the Chinese Navy has staged combat drills in the South China Sea, featuring one of its most advanced amphibious warfare ship. The exercises included both offensive and defensive maneuvers, information gathering, battlefield rescues, helicopter drills, and a simulation in which the ship successfully tracked and destroyed a target in the air. The ship's recent drills in the South China Sea come amid heightened tensions between China and the Philippines. At the same time, Manila has moved to strengthen its military ties with its neighbors and the United States, including its first joint Coast Guard drill with Vietnam off the west coast of Luzon earlier this month. And at least 7 people were killed and 12 others injured in a fire at a hotel in South Korea. The blaze erupted on the 8th floor of the 9-story hotel in Gaganyaan, south of the capital Seoul, late on Thursday evening. 27 guests were staying at the hotel when the fire occurred. The cause of the fire was not yet clear. In June, 23 people were killed in a massive fire at a South Korean lithium battery plant, one of the country's worst factory disasters in years. And America's space agency NASA to announce their final decision on Saturday as to whether 2 astronauts, Butch Wilmore and Sunita Williams, will return to Earth in Boeing's Starliner spacecraft or hitch a ride home with SpaceX instead. This decision could have a huge impact across the rapidly evolving space industry. Starliner launched its first 2 astronauts into space in June as a crucial test before it can receive NASA approval for routine flights. But what was supposed to be an 8-day mission docked to the ISS has been drawn out by months after the capsule sprang leaks and some of its thrusters failed. If NASA exercises the SpaceX backup plan, Wilmore and Williams would not come home until that mission's conclusion in February 2025, and Starliner would attempt to return to Earth empty. And stories from around the world now. Canada's Lucara diamond presented a newly discovered 2,492-carat diamond to Botswana's president on Thursday, calling it one of the largest stones excavated from its Karove mine situated in the South African country. The largest diamond ever discovered was the 3,106-carat Cullinan diamond from South Africa, mined in 1905. Hundreds of California sea lions took over San Carlos Beach in Monterey, California, prompting local officials to close the area for people. Though caution tape has been put up, but crowds are still enjoying the animal spectacle and taking photos of the sea lions as they rest and play on the sand and in the water. Aerials captured dramatic nighttime scenes of lava flows spreading from an erupting volcano in Sundanugur, north of Grindavik, Iceland on Thursday. The recent explosion marks the volcano's 6th eruptions since December. Singers Lenny Kravitz, Lisa of Blackpink and Halsey have been added to the star-studded lineup of artists to perform at the 2024 MTV VMAs on September 11th. This year will reportedly mark the first time that American singer-songwriter Kravitz has performed at the VMAs since 1998. The VMAs was due to be aired on September 10th but rescheduled for 11th of September. And still to come on DD India News Hour. India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh is on a 4-day visit to Washington, D.C. FSSAI directs removal of A1 and A2 type claims from milk and its products. A Grand Lamb donation camp was organised in Vrindavan as India gears up to celebrate Lord Krishna's birthday.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked. We just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Lipakshi Khurana, and time now for a quick recap of the headlines. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi reaches Kyiv on a historic visit to Ukraine, first ever visit by an Indian Prime Minister to Ukraine after establishing diplomatic ties in 1992. US Vice President Kamala Harris formally accepts Democratic presidential nomination, attacks Donald Trump, calling him unserious and a threat, vows a new way forward for all Americans. America's space agency NASA to decide stranded Starliner astronauts Sunita Williams and Barry Wilmore's return path home on Saturday. India celebrates its first National Space Day, honouring the success of Chandrayaan-3 mission. President Draupadi Murmu lauds India's journey to space. Well, India is commemorating its first ever National Space Day on August 23rd, marking a historic achievement with the successful landing of ISRO's Vikram lander from Chandrayaan-3 on August 23rd, 2023. This historic event highlights India's advancements in space exploration and the significance of space science and technology in national progress. The theme for this year's National Space Day is Touching Lives While Touching the Moon, India's Space Saga. President Draupadi Murmu, along with Union Minister Dr. Jitendra Singh and ISRO Chairman S. Somnath, attended an exhibition to showcase space technologies and achievements at Bharat Mandapam on the occasion of the maiden National Space Day on Friday. On the inaugural National Space Day, President Draupadi Murmu distributed prizes to the winners of ISRO's Robotic Challenge and Bharatiya Antariksh Hackathon.
इसरो भारत का अंतरिक्ष स्टेशन स्थापित करने की दिशा में आगे बढ़ रहा है। मैं गगनयान मिशन की भी उत्सुकता से प्रतीक्षा कर रही हूँ, जिसमें भारतीय अंतरिक्ष टीम को अंतरिक्ष में ले जाया जाएगा। मुझे विश्वास है कि इन सभी मिशन के फलस्वरूप ऐसे परिणाम सामने आएंगे जिनसे देश सामाजिक, आर्थिक एवं वैज्ञानिक रूप से लाभान्वित होंगे।
Well, ISRO Chairman S. Somnath credited Prime Minister Narendra Modi for his pivotal role in advancing India's space sector through key policy reforms. He emphasized that PM Modi's leadership has been instrumental in implementing policies that have driven India's space success.
It was on 23rd August 2023, Chandrayaan-3 made the historic landing on the moon, creating a never-before event in the history of the space program of this nation. In ISRO, we never imagined the impact that it's going to create out of this accomplishment. And it is when Honorable Prime Minister of India visited us in the control center after a few days, and he made the announcement of 23rd August to be the National Space Day, and also declared the landing site of Chandrayaan-3 as the Shiva Shakti point.
Well, Prime Minister Narendra Modi also extended greetings to everyone on the first National Space Day. Along with a video, Prime Minister on social media platform X wrote, and I quote, "We recall with great pride our nation's achievements in the space sector. It is also a day to laud the contributions of our space scientists. Our government has taken a series of futuristic decisions relating to this sector, and we will do even more in the times to come," unquote. And ISRO scientists shared their experiences of interacting with Prime Minister Narendra Modi during the Chandrayaan-2 and Chandrayaan-3 mission. Dr. B. N. Ramakrishna highlighted Prime Minister's excitement while celebrating the mission's success.
Our Honorable Prime Minister waved the flag and continuously he clapped, and the entire control center was a big area of joy, I can say. Everyone was clapping and shouting. It was a very nice thing. He told that India has achieved this feat not only for India, to the entire human community. He said this achievement is not just for our nation, it is for the entire world.
While sharing in the joy of the accomplishment, Dr. Pavitra Shinde described how the Prime Minister highlighted women's contribution in space and encouraged scientists to inspire the youth.
So it was a moment of joy, you know, it was some kind of a special joy, I can say, and that I could relate with the PM. He also experienced the same, and he told it's something which is very rare. And then he congratulated the entire scientific community, ISRO community, and then he applauded our efforts. He wants to highlight the contribution of the women in this particular field, the space field. His encouragement, especially for the younger generation, especially schools and colleges, he urged us, like especially the ISRO scientists, to inspire them, to guide them, share our experience.
Well, India is inching towards having an indigenous space station by 2035, with ISRO's mission Gaganyaan gearing up to send Indian astronauts to low Earth orbit on board an Indian launch vehicle. Demonstrating India's space prowess, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has called it India's stellar decade in space. DD India's Sakal Bhatt gets us more in the report that follows.
ये सिर्फ 4 नाम और 4 इंसान नहीं है, ये 140 करोड़ एस्पिरेशंस को स्पेस में ले जाने वाली 4 शक्तियां हैं। 40 वर्ष के बाद कोई भारतीय अंतरिक्ष में जाने वाला है।
As nation celebrates its 78th Independence Day, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's clarion call in February 2024, setting the tone for India's very own space mission with a spectacular launch of Gaganyaan, another significant step cementing India's space prowess globally. ISRO's ambitious mission Gaganyaan will send Indian astronauts on board an Indian launch vehicle, a defining moment in India's space journey. This mission is India's first human space flight program, for which extensive preparations are underway at various ISRO centers across the country. 2 unmanned and 1 manned mission are approved by Government of India under this program. In a big first, 3-member crew will cover over 400-kilometer orbit in 3 days, followed by a safe return to Earth by landing in Indian sea waters. Superior and new technologies comprising engineering and human-centric systems are integrated for Gaganyaan, with human safety accorded paramount importance. Meet India's astronauts designate for Gaganyaan, who will carry in their hearts the aspirations of nation of billions to space. Group Captain Prashant Balakrishnan Nair, Group Captain Ajit Krishan, Group Captain Angad Pratap and Wing Commander Subhanshu Shukla are India's astronauts designate for Gaganyaan, India's first crewed space mission. Crew training for space mission is underway. The astronauts have completed 2 out of 3 semesters of training, which includes training on the Space Flight Basic Module in Russia. And before the manned mission, ISRO plans to conduct 2 more uncrewed missions in 2025. Another fascinating aspect of Gaganyaan is Vyom Mitra, female-looking spacefaring humanoid robot astronaut set to fly into space. Vyomitra is part of uncrewed experimental Gaganyaan mission prior to crewed spaceflight mission. India at 78 sees this giant leap for a nation of billions poised to become space superpower, with India marking its territory in space, having India's own space station by 2035.
लेकिन इस बार टाइम भी हमारा है, काउंटडाउन भी हमारा है और रॉकेट भी हमारा है.
Sakal Bhatt's report for DD India.
Well, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has arrived in Ukraine on a historic visit. This is the first visit by an Indian Prime Minister to Ukraine since the country became independent in 1991. Interestingly, PM Modi made his way to Ukraine from Poland via the Rail Force One overnight train, which carried US President Joe Biden from Poland to Kyiv also in February 2023. And India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh, who is on a 4-day visit to Washington, D.C., had a lively interaction with the Indian community. Interacting with the Indian diaspora, Rajnath Singh expressed joy to see how the Indian community continues to cherish and uphold their cultural values and maintain their connection to their roots. During the minister's visit to Washington, India and US signed the Security of Supplies Arrangement document and Memorandum of Agreement regarding the assignment of liaison officers. And now let's take a look at other stories making news today. The Food Safety and Standards Authority of India has directed all food businesses, including e-commerce food business operators, to remove claims of A1 and A2 types from the packaging of milk and milk products. A1 and A2 are the different categories of milk based on the types of proteins they contain. As India gears up to celebrate Lord Krishna's birthday, a grand lamb donation camp was organized in Vrindavan in North Indian state of Uttar Pradesh. Krishna Janmashtami is a significant Hindu festival that celebrates the birth of Krishna, the 8th avatar of Vishnu. And still to come in DD India News Hour. Star Indian javelin thrower Neeraj Chopra secures second spot at the Lausanne Diamond League 2024. Pink performed at the final day of the Democratic National Convention in Chicago.
Always welcoming. The vibe of Punjab is larger than life. Warm up to grandeur that's beyond compare. And history that's dotted with tales of bravery. Smiling soul of India, where music, art, cuisine and culture comes together to create an unforgettable impression. Punjab is all set to win your hearts with its unique and colorful extravaganza.
Welcome to Jaipur.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Lipak Shikuran, and moving on, India is celebrating its first National Space Day. It's time to celebrate many firsts and milestones the country has achieved in various domains. India's tremendous space surge is marked by two remarkable missions, Chandrayaan-3 and Aditya L1. Successful launch of Chandrayaan-3 made India the first nation in the world to successfully land on the south pole of the moon, while mission Aditya L1, India's first space-based Indian mission to study the sun, is also making strides. India is on course to mark its territory on the sun as well as the moon. DD India's Sakal Bhatt gets us this report.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
14th July 2023. This date marks India's successful soft landing near the moon's south pole, establishing India as the first one to achieve this remarkable feat. The feat of landing a spacecraft in such proximity to the lunar south pole. Chandrayaan-3 is India's third lunar mission and second attempt at achieving soft landing on the moon's surface. On July 14, 2023 at 2:35 p.m., Chandrayaan took off from Satish Dhawan Space Center in Sriharikota. The spacecraft seamlessly entered lunar orbit on 5th of August 2023. The historic moment unfolded when the lander made a successful touchdown near the lunar south pole on August 23, 2023. Chandrayaan-3 is a three-component mission consisting of propulsion module, lander module and rover module. Successful launch of Chandrayaan-3 resulted in major findings of the mission. Chandra's surface thermophysical experiment measured temperatures reaching 70 degrees centigrade. Chandrayaan-3 is significant for the Indian space program, undoubtedly. It makes India part of the elite group of nations, Russia, the US and China, with demonstrated lunar soft landing capability, showcasing its leadership in space technology, including positioning India as a global hub in the new space economy. The reusable launch vehicle technology aids in cost reduction for future launches as well. Within 2 months of achieving a spectacular feat of landing at closest proximity of moon, Indian space scientists took another giant leap. It was time to get as close to the sun. September 2nd, 2023 marked yet another major breakthrough accomplishment for ISRO with the launching of Aditya L1 from Satish Dhawan Space Center at Sriharikota. Aditya L1 is the first Indian mission to study the sun from space, designed to study the sun's dynamics. Aditya L1 spacecraft is equipped with 7 payloads that will observe the sun's photosphere chromosphere. The mission aims to provide valuable insights into the sun's behavior, which will help scientists better understand space weather and its impact on Earth. Aditya L1 spacecraft was inserted in its targeted halo orbit on January 6, 2024. And after a journey of 127 days, the spacecraft reached the L1 point, approximately 15 lakh kilometers from Earth. On July 2nd, Aditya L1 spacecraft completed its first halo orbit around the sun, a complex maneuver that required precise navigation and control. Aditya L1 instruments will provide valuable data to help scientists understand sun behavior better. India's groundbreaking mission Chandrayaan-3 uncovering moon's long-guarded secret, and Aditya L1 helping discover sun's various dimensions, thus setting the tone for India's mega space movement. As India celebrates its 78th Independence Day, its space prowess continues to cruise ahead to rule skies and beyond. Sakal Bhatt's report for DD India.
While you're watching DD India News, time now for some sports news. Star Indian javelin thrower Neeraj Chopra secured second spot as he registered a season-best throw of 89.49 meters at the Lausanne Diamond League 2024 on Thursday night. This was in Chopra's first competitive appearance since he bagged silver for India at the Paris Olympics 2024. The 26-year-old was edged out by Grenada's Anderson Peters, who claimed the top spot in Switzerland with a mammoth throw of 90.81 meters. Meanwhile, Julian Weber of Germany came in third on the day with the best throw of 87.08 meters. The top 6 javelin throwers in the season standings qualify for the final in Belgium, slated to be held on the 14th of September. And 4 Indian women wrestlers on Thursday became the under-17 world champions in their respective categories, stamping their class at World Wrestling Championships 2024. Aditi Kumari emerged a champion in the 43 kg, blanking Maria Luisa Gikika of Greece 7-0 in the title clash. In the 57 kg final, Neha overpowered Japan's So Suetsi as she stood out with a double-leg attacks. In the 65 kg final, Pulkit faced Daria Frolova, who is competing as a neutral athlete, and won 6-3. Mansi Latha clinched the top podium spot after beating Hannah Perskava in the 73 kg final. Moreover, India also won top bronze medals in Greco-Roman style, with Ronak Dahaya and Sainath Bharati ending on podiums. And England and Wales Cricket Board announced on Thursday that the Lords in London will host its first ever women test between India and England in 2026. India women's team will travel to England for a white ball series in 2025. A 5-match T20 series will be followed by 3 one-day internationals. India will return to England in 2026 for the one-off test. The first match of the T20 series will be played on June 28th, while the 5th match will take place on July 12th. It will be followed by ODI series. And in tennis, US Open organizers have confirmed that Tunisian player Ons Jabeur has pulled out of the tournament after facing an injury-riddled season. The 29-year-old withdrew from the City Open earlier this month, citing a right shoulder injury, and in June was forced to retire from the Berlin Open in the quarterfinals. She also missed the Paris Olympics because of knee issues. Following Jabeur's withdrawal, Ellis Mertens will take over the Tunisians' place in the draw after being installed as the 33rd seat. A qualifier lucky loser will take place, the Belgians, in the draw. And a new exhibition showcasing the evolution of Formula One has opened in London for public on Thursday as the sport celebrates its 74th year. The exhibition has 6 galleries that feature memorabilia from F1 best teams, state-of-art simulators that offer members of the public an opportunity to get behind the wheel of an F1 car experience, and 7 legendary championship-winning cars, including that of Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen. It has taken several years to put the show together, and nearly all of the Formula One teams have contributed to it.
The Formula One exhibition is a storytelling experience. I think that's the best way to describe it. Stretched over 7 individually designed galleries, each of them a new world that we have created that provides a different perspective on the sport's past, present and future.
Well, Pink, along with her daughter Willow, performed a version of a hit single, What About Us, on the final day of the Democratic National Convention in Chicago. Take a look.
We are searchlights we can see in the dark. What about us? What about all the times you said, what about us? Oh, what about us? What about all the plans that ended in disaster? We were willing, we came when you called, but man, you fooled us. Enough is enough. What about us? What about all the plans that ended in disaster? Oh, what about love? What about trust? What about us?
All right, that's all for this edition of DD India Live. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India across the world on the DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Lipakshi Kurana from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour.